your background is both in communications and tech.
I realized that I needed to, in essence, learn the language of technology. It took me many years to finally decide, what kind of leader I wanted to be. I also enjoy working with different sides of, say, a problem and helping to find that commonality that moves us forward.
Hello and welcome back to the Interior Public Podcast. This is a show where we're going to be talking about leadership, presence, and the inner architecture of influence in today's modern work world. I'm your host, Mary Diaz. And my guest today is Tervor Morgan. He's the CEO of Open Drives, and he brings a really interesting mix of both technical depth and communication. Why don't you take it away? Give us a little introduction about what you're working on and what you're up to these days.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Really appreciate the invitation and have been excited to join the conversation. So thank you very much. So I am the Chief Operating Officer for Open Drives. Open Drives historically has been a data storage vendor. So we started off with some founders who were technologists in the media and entertainment space. They couldn't find data storage that would support their needs. So in true California fashion, they invented their own, right? A bit removed from the hardware side, and now we are purely focused on software development, still for data storage and data management and some other things we can get into, but that is what Open Drives does, and I head up the operations and just try to ensure that all of the things that we're doing across the company are moving in the right direction in a very narrow, focused way, right?
It seems like your background is both in communications and tech, and I'm so interested in that, how that combination works for you and how it got you to your role today.
So when I was in my 20s, I went all the way through from my first degree all the way to a PhD toward the end of my 20s. That was just something that was important to me. Those degrees were in a communications field. I thought I was going to be teaching in the universities, and I did for a while, but when you rack up lots of student loan debt, you wind up thinking, wait, how am I going to pay all of this off? So I started parlaying those communication skills, in particular the writing as well as the speaking, by I think one of the first things I ever wrote was on wastewater treatment plants. That was on research. But from that point, moving forward, I started working with tech companies, obviously first centered around technical communications, the writing, the speaking, the training. But in order to do that effectively, I realized that I needed to, in essence, learn the language of technology. I needed to understand whether it's a protocol stack or whether it's something between two hardware devices, maybe two routers. I needed to understand that nearly as well as the engineers themselves. And so it didn't take long as I was doing what I was doing with the technical communications for people to come up and go, wow, you can configure those things well. You're really good at operating this. Would you like to do some field engineering? So I started doing that all along the way, also heading up groups, using my communication skills to coordinate and make sure that small teams were all working on what we needed to. That over time led to doing more program and programmatic management, project management, ultimately to product management. When you're interfacing with customers with software, very often those customers will say, boy, it would really be great if the next version did this. To do product management, you're starting to take these requirements and bring them back into the corporation or the business that you're representing. So that migration, looking back on it, makes a lot of sense. I started off with the ability to speak and write. I started doing the writing and the training, then started moving to the hands-on technical work, then more into advanced activities, ultimately leading up to software design and trying to put all of this together into complex packages of software. So where I wind up right now is heading up a successful software company that creates very sophisticated software-defined data storage, still for the M&E market, but we're branching out from there. But I'll end this with one point, which is from That point many decades ago to right now, the skills that I gained then are the ones that are still my strong suit. They're the ones that I depend upon every single day. I find it fun and pretty easy to learn a new technology. You look through a spec or read a white paper or something. But if you can't communicate in writing and in speaking, then you're going to have trouble working with that. So I use those skills every single hour, every single day.
What's your favorite part about what you do right now?
And it's probably the reason that I wound up in this role, really ensuring that across our company, we're all focused on whether we're talking about the technical engineering side or whether we're talking about the business side, even the sales side. I look out for all of those areas, making sure that we have narrowly focused goals and then moving toward those with a high degree of synchronicity and communications and collaboration and cooperation. Obviously, doing that depends upon communications, very effective communications. But if I go all the way back to getting those degrees in tandem, bang, 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 it was being very goal focused and being very narrow about what I was trying to accomplish. And I find as I look over my career and in all of the technology companies I've been in, the ones that go astray are the ones that go, oh, let's take on all of these different things. Well, then you have a lack of focus, and ultimately, those organizations did not succeed. This is where I really saw great success within those companies are the ones that said, what is our target? What is one, maybe two things we really want to achieve? And let's keep the focus. And then operationally, let's all work toward this and not let the defocusing factors move us off of this. That to me is why I enjoy this role. And it's why I enjoy technology. I'm a very focused person. I like to use storytelling and other ways to get everybody to understand we're going toward this goal over there. If we move to the left or we move to the right, we're not going to get to that goal. Sometimes you have to pivot. Pivoting is different from just deciding you're going to take on 20 different things and accomplishing none of them.
How else do you define yourself as a leader?
For me, leadership is never leading from the back. It really is being with all of the people in the organization, being very involved, sometimes even rolling up the sleeves and getting the work done side by side, lending my unique talents side by side with everybody else to achieve that. The leadership in my past that I've noticed didn't work well were those who were disconnected from the organizations they led. Either they spent time in a vacuum or a bubble with other executives, maybe led through some chain of command, and really never spent time with the most valuable people in the organization, those who are doing the hard work, whether it's creating the software or delivering the services. And that's what I love to do. And so to do that, you have to really enjoy the people you work with. Sometimes it is not the easiest thing to do in the world because, as you know, once you get two people together, you start getting disagreements. I also enjoy working with different sides of, say, a problem and helping to find that commonality that moves us forward together. And so that to me is what leadership is. It is working with everybody, not pointing everybody else, hey, go take that hill over there and let me know when it's done. That is not, it doesn't sit right when you're an individual contributor, and it's less effective and it's a lot less fun.
I love that. That's so well said. Totally agree. That's great. Well, now, what about AI? How is that impacting how you're leading your team?
That's and AI is such an immensely complicated and broad topic. So I'll just talk about it that I've been dealing with it. Let's call it an organizational and a leadership level. From an organizational perspective, I feel that AI can be helpful when people are trying to gather information rapidly, really pull that from this massive ocean of, let's just call it muck. There's just a lot of information out there.
Yeah.
And very
Noise.
often, and back a generation ago, we would call it advanced search, but now AI does this in such an intuitive and very painless way. You really don't even have to articulate your what we used to call in the search industry querying. Now
Well,
you just ask a question the way the way I might ask my spouse a question. Hey, like this, and then you start getting this information back, and then in this iterative fashion of shaping the responses back and forth, AI can more quickly get you to very actionable information. That's what I love about it. In that case, it's really just a continuation of the last 20 years in data analytics and text analytics. Now it just does so in a very intuitive fashion. Where I really worry about AI, and this steps onto those skills of my own that I talked about earlier, you can have it write something for you. Sure, you can do that. I don't do that. It's all, and call me old fashioned or traditionalist. I spent many years being taught how to think and compose my thoughts. So I've really resisted using it to create a finished product myself. I do know others start to do that. If I even look at the technical side of our organization, we have developers who can use it from a coding perspective. Again, if it is to really if it's really to just draft and refine, I find that great. If it's to just take the easy way out and not interact with the subject matter, whether you're a writer or a coder or anything else, I have a problem with that. And I'll just tell you one reason why. That really does take that human element out of it. Whether you're speaking or writing, whether you're doing software development or whether you're doing sales, all of that has a human element that we infuse in that. That's what we call the art of selling, the art of
yeah.
speaking or whatnot. And I notice that those who are just like, oh, great, I don't have to write this white paper anymore. I'll just have AI do it. I can read through that and go, something's missing there. And so that's, I think, where a lot of us are concerned about what ultimately where is this going to take these arts? What are we, I think it's going to be in a good direction. I think it's going to be used as a way to quickly cut through all of, as I called it, that muck and get to the kernel or seed of what you need. And then you can start to shape it as a human being from there. But who knows? We'll see.
Tell me a little bit about like your perception of executive presence.
Yeah, so being at the C level, I work very closely with our CEO. We have a CTO, and we have a group of very senior leaders around us. And a good portion of that group, we're all interfacing internally, but when it comes to external facing, it depends upon the role. I, for example, focus more on the operations. So with our investor community, I talk to a lot of the interested parties who get into the operations. How are things running? How are the financials looking? All of the things needed to run the company. Our CEO, Sean Lee, spends an inordinate amount of time out with customers, out there kind of doing that external evangelism. Some of our other senior leaders will wind up doing the external relations, again, according to the disciplines from which they're coming. Our head of CX obviously is talking to customers when there's a particularly thorny situation and really working to go, hey, we're working on this. This is the time frame. As you probably are aware, all software has bugs. Yeah, this is a bug. We're fixing. But really, we all wind up doing the communications that best suits the disciplines that we're representing. Our CTO, for example, Alex Dunphy, when we need to get either if we're talking to aspects of our investor community or even broader audiences, if we need to do that deep dive into the architecture, I understand it from like, let's call it that medium technical level, same as our CTO. But if somebody's going to be there, let's say a bunch of other CTOs are going to be there, you're going to want your CTO if that conversation drops to that lower technical level. And so I'm going to call this way back when I was doing my graduate studies, we called this rhetorical sensitivity. Do you know who you're out talking to, and can you speak to that and at that appropriate level? Or do you need the assistance to either look at your CTO, Alex, can you answer that question? Sean, can you answer that question? In many cases, I enjoy shuttling the ball off to the appropriate person. And really ineffective management, I note, those are the people who can't stop talking. They want to field every question, all of the attention, like, I'm going to answer this. When you may be sitting next to your CTO, they probably want to hear from the CTO if they're talking about something very much deeper in the technical exchange of different pieces of software or something going on down there. And so I've always wondered, when you're front and center, hey, if you can't answer the question, first of all, just say, that's a great one. I'm going to take a note of that. I'm going to get back to you. If you happen to be solo, as I am now, with other people, push it off to other people and let everybody excel at the experience and the knowledge that they have. It ultimately comes back to you. And so I'm going to give our senior management team a lot of credit. We've all worked together for quite a few years, and it's almost like watching the lateral of a football back and forth. We know, hey, this question should probably go over there. And so that I think, to me, is most important. Who are you talking to? Are the right people at that table, and are you all sharing the burden rather than trying to hog it for yourself? Yeah, I always tell people, if people don't want to listen to me for an hour, my voice is not that great. And we can all wind up droning on and on, but when you're having real conversations in front of a crowd, in front of our company, if it's an internal meeting or if it's external, watching the exchange and the movement of the conversation, I think that captures people's attention, and I think they pay attention more when they're That's why we watch talk shows. When
Right. It's more dynamic.
you're drawn in. If it's one person lecturing at you, you're like, please make it stop. I get it. You're smart. Stop. And I always have that voice in my mind at some point, like, okay, stop answering. Make sure that others are helping out, and just share that airtime.
Tell me about what, like, your business right now. Like, if you, like, the magic wand, if you could wave a magic wand in your business right now to solve a problem, like to something that's like feels like it's draining your energy, or like not as focused as you like to be, what would that be?
There are so many things I would wave that wand and do. The one that's really been plaguing many of us in media and entertainment, as I said, we're a data storage company. We cater to the media and entertainment industry. We grew out of that. That when you are aligned with a single industry, you will ride that industry's ups and downs. Think of like energy. The energy industry is booming. Now it's bust. This is the reason that most companies ultimately spread out with multiple product lines, or at least they're working in different industries so it balances it out. When I joined this organization, I first started working with them as a consultant back in 2018. To this point, it was clear that the media and entertainment industry was headed for some rough seas. And you've probably seen that play out. Not only just have the geopolitical things going on created tougher economies and things like that, but when you look at an industry that's had multiple strikes, when you start talking about self-imposed damage plus an industry, you realize then that, like, people just aren't spending on data storage. Where they would have replaced that in 4 or 5 years, they're going to try to get 8 or 9 years out of it if they can. And so for us, and it really became apparent as we shifted away from having a hardware and software solution, it was literally, here's this big server with the software. Now we don't worry about that hardware. It's just the software. We realized we really need to diversify. We really need to ensure that, as media and entertainment over these past years, and it really did hit that pitch with the strikes, we really need to cater to other markets. And how do we do that? That very often then shifts what we're building as software, because it was optimized for media and entertainment for these massive unstructured sets of video files and things like that. Well, how do you take that and go into some other industry where the media it may still be video, but it may be very different? So now you when you decide, okay, we're going to do that, are you creating more than one product? How are you going to do that with the number of people you have? And remember what I started off with at the beginning, is this defocusing us from what And that has been the thing that keeps me up at night. We have been creating a new product. It's called Astreus. Our flagship product is called Atlas. It's the software that drives data storage for the media and entertainment market. And we're coming out with a much broader sort of data infrastructure piece of software. Kind of manages above where the storage layer is. That can go into many different industries, but do we know those industries? Do we have I mean, we can write the software, but to sell that, to support it, to do all of these things, you need almost, it's a different product line, but you need support personnel all around that. Now you need to figure out, how are we going to fund this? What is growing too large? And again, in the back of my mind, I'm constantly thinking, are we defocused? Are we defocused? We're coming up to a few weeks and we are finished with that. That's been a 2+ year journey. So magic wand is being waved simply because come heck or high water, we get to that point and we see where it brought us. All the way, though, it has been, this is kind of defocusing us from our core, but we're choosing to do that. But all of these other things that come up along the way are those defocusing us. So it's just been making sure that our laser focus is, okay, if we're going to go into another industry with another product, narrowly, what are we trying to do here? Because suddenly you're trying to account for everything and suddenly nobody's getting anything done because we're all worried about everything. That wand, if I could wave that, I would say that we release this, that it starts to get traction within a few of the other markets, that we learn those quicker rather than slower, and that we really start seeing by the end of the year some real adoption amongst what we call lighthouse customers. That's my magic, that's my magic wand. I think there's going to be a massive sort of collective sigh of relief in our organization that, wow, we did this. And when you're talking about a company with nearly 60 people and we have contractors and others, and we've all been committed to this, and then you finish it, it's almost like, wow, yes, we want it to make lots of money for the company and our investors, but we did this. We did it. I think that's my magic wand wish of all, is that everybody just says, that was incredible. We decided to do it. We stayed the course and we did it. And hopefully everything else, the success, the financial success, I think that should follow. But that's my magic wish.
Do you have a sense of like what industry you would be breaking into?
We, fortunately, we have some really sharp senior leaders who have been focused on the strategic side of this, on the, hey, if we took this into another, and here's the way we had to do it. Our current flagship product works, as I said, in M&E. And what does M&E, what do those workflows look like? And what are the video and audio files? What kind of data is that working with? Now, looking into other industries, what other industries are doing similar things? We started doing short listing of, well, there's certainly energy, there's healthcare. You can just think of all the stuff you do with diagnostics, and that's using very low. And civil engineering, they work a lot with very complex, unstructured data. So it was really a matter of just stepping back, extrapolating, getting a short list of markets that are healthy. There's an exercise in product management called doing the TAM, SAM, and SOM, which is really just the total addressable market, and ultimately the fraction of that market that you feel you could really sell into. You look at markets like energy. Okay, that's a many, many tens of $billion a year market. You're going to get all of that. So you have to start subdividing it, going, okay, well, we can do this and this and this. And so realistically, if we launch, what might our revenue be for the first year, the second year, and the third year? So we had to shortlist, we had to look at our own experience. And so we do have one or two that we're going to start outside of media and entertainment, that we're going to start introducing to lighthouse customers, probably these larger organizations that have the capability to go, hey, that's really interesting software. Sure, let us work with it for 30 days in our labs. Start as soon as we are complete with the code at the end of the month. That's exactly it. And it's close, but even after that, I think we all know it's okay. Once the code is complete, what after that? Now it's constant and iterative refinement and taking that feedback. You might get 3 lighthouse customers, and one may love it, and the other one may hate it, and the other one goes, "Well, if you make these changes, I'll love it." And now you have to prioritize and figure out what's truth or what's just a distraction. It never ends, but that's
Right.
why we're in the technology arena. We love iteratively refining, improving, and ultimately putting out technology that the customers want. That's why they're paying large sums of money. Sometimes you just have to work with them and you have to hear the criticism before they start. Yes, I also love this.
Well, what is your client acquisition process like? Are you
So it's been multi-pronged. First and foremost, we do have a very healthy list of existing customers in media and entertainment, from some of the biggest names that you've heard of in broadcast and entertainment, all the way to very specialty boutique post-production shops. Within that customer base, especially the larger ones, think of some, think of some of these very large broadcast organizations. They have very complex infrastructures
right?
that sit above the data storage where we may have some of our technology. And so we're starting with what we know best. We're starting with existing customers. And of course, in that community, they can point you to other people. But then as we branch out from there, and I'll give a plug to our investment community. Our investment community is, many of them come from media and entertainment, some don't. So some people just think, I wonder how they look at their investors like, okay, just give us the money and we'll give it back to you in multiples and go away. Unfortunately, our investment community they're very active in what we're doing. And we can ask them, our major investor, IAG, we can go, hey, do you have other contacts maybe in this industry or that industry? Because many of these larger investment organizations, they're not just invested in companies like us. They may have diversified across a great number of industries. And so you work that angle to make sure that even if it's a secondary or tertiary contact, let's get out, and we're really interested in civil engineering or energy or sports or whatever it is, and getting those contacts and using that. And then the third one is just our own research. We've interacted with lots of the analysts, and through that, and by the way, I'm going to circle us back to AI, using all of that and good analytics and AI, you can target, hey, I'm going to use this one again. Civil engineering sounds really interesting. These very organizations that design airports or whatnot. Okay, well, there you can quickly get a short list of those and go, who are the who are the IT leaders there? What about this? What about that? And suddenly you have a target list of people you can reach out to. Now that's dicey because they're going to probably perceive, if you just shoot off an email, they're going to perceive that as spam. But once again, going back to our existing customers or our investors, or just using our contacts, trying to find ways to engage with a beachhead sort of contact who can then start getting us talking internally. And so using those different methods, you start to compile this list of, hey, these are the ones we want to work with. Once you have that focus, it's just a matter of determination, right? That once our new product comes out and we start having a customer base, I think at that point, then you can start to rely on your business development and salespeople. But at this point, with a brand new product, we don't have that yet. So we're working really with this. Hey, would you like to engage in a research project if it
Right.
saved you millions and millions of dollars and took headaches off your plate? Again, 9 out of 10 people would go away. I'm too busy. There's that one group or that one person who might say, yeah, I have that headache right now. What do you got? You never know unless you ask. You ask.
This has just been so fascinating. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
The one thing that I would say about leadership is I think it took me many, many, many years to finally decide, what kind of leader I wanted to be, because sometimes in my first management position, you feel like you have to be holding on tightly and telling everybody what to do. And you go through this journey of figuring out, what's the best way to be a leader. And I think I realized there is no best way to be a leader because it's going to be natural to who you are. And so stop trying to be like, I don't know, if you're a salesperson and you want to be as great sales leader and you had this hardcore person you worked for who just told everybody what to do and yelled at them, you're like, I'm going to be a leader like that. Well, maybe that's not the leader you should be. And so just embrace that journey and just figure out what feels right for you. And I think you're either kind of assuming some sort of false persona, or you're taking an approach that just doesn't feel right. Real leadership to me should just feel good. Like you should be committed to the people, committed to the what they call in the military the mission or whatever you want to call it, and everything should just come naturally. And the people I worry about are the ones who are trying to go, now I'm this leader, so I have to be this certain way. You really just have to be yourself and be willing to block for people, to enable, maybe to take some of the deflected shrapnel and really to be genuine. That to me, those are the best leaders. I strive to do that every day. Very often I don't meet that, but I'm always trying to, can I help my people more? Can I help this person more? Can I block more? Does this person look stressed? How can I help this? And again, this is the roll up the sleeves and just be engaged with everybody. And that to me feels right. But usually that feels right to most people when you're helping your company, your coworkers, and you're trying to gain success. That should feel right to you.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful and like precisely articulated universal thing on leadership. So I think that's really, really beautiful. Thank you so much, Tervor. Is there any way, where can we find you? Are you anything else? If people want to connect with you, learn more about you and your business, where can they find you?
Sure. The first place to go would be our corporate website, www.opendrives. It's all one word, and then there's an S at the end of it.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you just look up Tervor J. Morgan, Open Drives, I'm there on LinkedIn. Between those two areas and our corporate LinkedIn, we post a lot of videos, things like this that I and our CEO and other evangelists within the company do. So if you're interested in anything that we're publishing or producing video-wise, start there. And there's just a plethora of information, and would love it if you have any questions, just reach out and ping me. I'm t.morgan@opendrives.com. I love questions, and I'm pretty sure I answer them all unless they wind up in my spam filter. And sometimes I even find myself there looking for something and like, oh, that person wrote me a month ago and I didn't answer. So I try to be very responsive, but happy to answer any questions too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you again at the next episode. Take care.
Thank you, Mary.